Good morning, everybody, and it's great to talk to you about what we've prepared for today, and it's a very important topic, indexing of scholarly journals. During the previous few weeks, we've looked at DOAJ, at the criteria for inclusion, etc. In the second webinar, we looked at editorial processes and business models. Then we had a look at, we zoomed in on copyright and licensing, and last week we had a look at open access journal best practices. And today we're going to look at indexing and how it applies to OJS. And we are a couple of presenters. I will give an overview of indexing. Lena will give an overview of our OJS system as an example, open source system. I will then talk about optimizing your journal website using OJS. Edvaldas will talk about the EIFL checklist and take you through that. And then Sue will share an example index. In the example of AJOL, and Louise van Geerden will share more on SciELO South Africa as an example of a regional index. So what is indexing exactly? In simple terms, to index means to categorize or list content. Think of a library with books. All those content have been categorized according to certain subjects. And Google is just another example of a digital library, or the world's biggest library, if you want to put it as that, with lots of websites and each categorized by Google according to the metadata and the keywords assigned to a certain website. So digital indexing refers to the organization of information that occurs. I just want to remove this screen here on the right-hand side. And digital indexing refers to the organization of information that occurs after crawling, which allows pages to be seen on search engines. So Google has, and other search engines has crawlers or bots or whatever it is, spiders that constantly crawls the web and categorize new websites and new web pages added every day. It's also called or referred to as a discovery service. So another name for a search engine is discovery service. And just to give you an idea, currently there are more than 56.5 billion web pages indexed through Google. And eventually your journal website will have to compete with all 56.5 plus billion web pages to be seen and to be accessed by users. So why is it important to have your journal indexed by discovery services and search engines? It's mainly to make your journals and in articles highly discoverable, highly visible. And eventually this will expand the reach, the reputation, the usage, and the impact of your journal. And to the right-hand side, I put an example. If you put your journal title in the search box for Google or an article title, you want that title to return at the top of the list of the search result or of the results returned by Google. So where should you have your journal index? We distinguish between search engines or discovery services such as Google and Google Scholar, but there's many more. I just put it here as an example. If you want to check whether your journal website is currently indexed by Google, what you can do, go to the Google search box, type in site : and then the URL and press enter. And if Google finds your website, it means it indexes and all are good. The second place to have your journal title indexed is in academic scholarly databases or indexes. And here we can distinguish between discipline-specific databases. For example, if your journal covers law, then you will work with your academic librarian at your institution and identify which databases cover law journals, and then apply for inclusion in those databases. Then there's multidisciplinary or general databases. of which the directory of open access journals is the one we are focusing on as part of this series. But there's also Ulrich's Web and Scopus, Web of Science. Web of Science, of course, includes more disciplinary databases as well, in the form of Science Citation Index Expanded, Social Science Citation Index, and the Arts and Humanities Citation Index. And then there's also academic search. So in addition to having your journal indexed through Google and Google Scholar, identify disciplinary databases and apply for inclusion, and also apply for inclusion of your journal title in these multidisciplinary journals or general databases, of which DOAJ is key. So, and once you have registered your journal website with various indexes, indicate it under About or somewhere on your journal website. And this is an example from the South African Journal of Science, where they mention where it is being indexed with links to the entries in those indexes when you click on it. This is for contingency purposes. Should another journal editor take over from the existing journal editor, but it's also to demonstrate credibility and that the journal has indeed been evaluated, assessed by these indexes, and in the end included for indexing because it adheres to certain criteria from these indexes. So very good practice, and frequently visit the entries in those databases or whatever you want to call it, and make sure your information on your journal is up to date and that all links are active. You do not want to have broken links on your website. If you want to explore yourself, there's a Wikipedia entry containing a list of academic databases and search engines, databases also according to specific disciplines. So if your journal is about law, go and have a look which databases cover law. And then there's also a website by the University of Miami where you can explore which databases would be relevant for your journal. And once you know which one and you identify the databases, visit these websites, check what the criteria are to be included, make sure your journal adheres to the criteria, and then apply for inclusion. Those indexes will then evaluate your journal and see whether it's appropriate for their index. So why index your journal in DOAJ? First of all, because of DOAJ's reputation and prominence. DOAJ is the most important community-driven open access service in the world and has a reputation for advocating best practices and standards in open access. By indexing your journal in DOAJ, its reputation and prominence will be enhanced. DOAJ's basic criteria for inclusion have become the accepted way of measuring and open access journals' adherence to standards in scholarly publishing. And once included in DOAJ, it sends out a clear message that your journal adheres to those standards and best practice requirements. Open access publication in the third instance, open access publication funds often require that authors who want funding must publish in journals that are included and listed in the directory of open access journals. And indexing in DOAJ makes your journals comply with many initiatives and programs around the world. For example, Plan S, which is a huge funder, and Cape Squales in Brazil. And lastly, in the fourth instance, DOAJ metadata is free for anyone to collect. So it's important that you deposit your metadata with DOAJ. And once it's been deposited with DOAJ, it becomes, it's easily incorporated into search engines and discovery services, databases, other indexes. And then it's propagated across the internet. So you literally want to do everything possible to make your journal discoverable. And in the last instance, our database, DOAJ's database, includes more open access journals from a diverse list of countries, I think more than 80 countries, than any other major indexing service. And we have a global editorial team working as managing editors, ambassadors, and volunteers. So we will do our best to offer local support in your language. So we promise that your information about your journal will be seen around the world. And DOAJ criteria, like I've said, each index or discovery service has its own criteria for inclusion. We're not sure what Google's criteria is, but we can speak to criteria for DOAJ and the Web of Science, etc. So different indexes have different criteria for inclusion. You have to visit it and double check and read through it and make 100% sure that you adhere to the requirements before applying for inclusion, so that there's no delays. And we've covered the DOAJ basic criteria for inclusion last week during our webinar on best practice and also in the first webinar. So please refer to the first webinar. I'm not going to go into great detail. It has to do with requirements such as the journal has to have a proper title, and that proper title needs to be registered with the ISSN registry, and an ISSN, an electronic ISSN, has to be assigned to the online journal. But because remember, a journal cannot be open access unless it's online and unless it is open access. An open access journal has to be online. So, and then it requires an EISSN. So how can you optimize your journal for indexing? And it's often referred to as search engine optimization, SEO, in the world of web design. And you might need some technical advice and input from a web expert, but often your system like OJS makes your journal website discoverable by other discovery services. But advice from our side is it is important that you host all your journal articles on the same website. So don't have volume 1 to 10 on one website with a different web address, and then volume 11 to 20 on a different website, and then volume 21 to 30 on another third website. It makes it incredibly difficult for search engines to index all and to make sense of it. So centralize all on one website. Ensure that your journal website has a logical navigation structure so that humans and search engine crawlers can understand it. Optimize your, create a sitemap for the journal website and submit to general search engines like Google. And I will show you now or later on how to do that. Maintain your journal sitemap over time so all pages are included. And this is what a journal sitemap looks like. So it's a lot of code, it's machine readable, and machines need to understand it. It's not necessary that you understand it. And ensure that you have robust quality content on all of your journal's main web pages. Use long-tail keywords for better search results. And a long-tail keyword, for those of you that do not know, is a phrase that is generally made up of 3 to 5 words. And since these keywords are more specific than generic terms, they allow you to target niche demographics. These keywords are also less competitive than generic keywords because they are designed to better reflect how people make queries and when they enter their search terms in that search engine search box. Make sure all your pages, the main page and each individual article page, have HTML meta tags that provide descriptive metadata to search engines. HTML stands for hypertext markup language, and that's the language of the web. Furthermore, create rich machine-readable metadata files for all articles in a standard interoperable language to submit to deposit-based indexes like DOAJ, and make full-text articles available in minimum PDF. But if you want to improve on the indexing, also for readability, consider EPUB. So the article should be available in full-text PDF minimum. EPUB for people with reading challenges, and then HTML and JATS XML format for machines and search engines to discover the content inside those full text articles. And JATS XML is a technical indexing standard for academic journals, and it's easy to convert your articles from PDF to JATS XML. Here's an example of a typeset open source software journal management system tool. So you just simply upload your PDF file, and then they send the converted JATS XML back to your email, and you attach it as a galley along with the PDF and the EPUB and the HTML, and this is what it will look like eventually once published. Your full text will be available in different formats. So XML in this example for machines to read, not for humans to read. OJS also has a plugin which you can activate to convert your PDF to JATS XML, so that this JATS XML file can be uploaded as a galley so that machines can read it. Please get in touch with any of the African DOAJ ambassadors should you need help. And thank you. I'm handing over to Lina. Thank you.
Hello, colleagues. Let me just try to share my screen. Thank you so much, Ina. Can everyone see me? I can just see my slides.
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you so much, Ina. So in this presentation, I'm going to just speak to the dashboard of OJS and pick on some things, just a few things that Ina has spoken to. I just want to say, last week Ina spoke about best practice. I would like to say some components, yes, are best practice, and some are actually good practice. And I'll pick some of these as I go. This is my overview of what I am going to cover. And I am going to speak to OJS. Maybe let me just go back to this slide before I share with you the loud slide. Talking to OJS is Open Journal Systems. It is among the softwares that Ina shared with us, open source softwares. And Open Journal Systems is one of the softwares developed by Public Knowledge Projects, and it is a multi-university project whereby developers come together to develop open source softwares. It's not only Open Journal Systems, there's also Open Monograph Press for open monographs and Open Conference Systems, but we in our institution only utilize Open Journal Systems and Open Monograph Press. So the advantage about Open Journal Systems is a journal management software, because it is open source, it is flexible, and its flexibility comes with that you can be able to download. And if you download it, you can make a choice whether you want to utilize one instance for all your journals, or you want to utilize different instances for your different titles. It's a choice you can make, but maybe some few challenges might come with the time of upgrading if you do have different instances. But if you do have your titles on one instance, the upgrade is once off, and then you are left behind with just data verification if everything has migrated. I can also say the good thing about OJS is you download a generic software, but because this is an ongoing project, they constantly develop the software. So with every upgrade, some plugins are getting better and they increase some plugins. These plugins are just facilities that will allow you to do certain activities on Open Journal Systems. Like for instance, there's a plugin for DOAJ. So you set up that plugin so that DOAJs can be automatically added, or can be OJS can mint DOAJs for your articles. But I just mentioned DOAJ, but they are prerequisite to certain plugins for them to function. Maybe I can speak some more with that. And PKP, so what it does, it develops software and it constantly do research to see how it can be enhanced for scholarly communication to progress properly. So if you have your OJS set, when you log in, this is what you see in OJS. I apologize for my busy slide. So on top, you can be able to see that there is the title of the journal. Then the dashboard are the tabs that are on my left-hand side. So all these tabs, they allow you to facilitate specific actions in OJS. There is submissions. So it means on this section, you can be able to see all the submissions that have been uploaded into OJS by different authors or by editors-in-chief, maybe editorials. And on this stage, you can be able also to add a submission. So it facilitates that. I'm not going to speak more about submissions. Maybe in another training, we can be able to speak more on what we can do here. But just before I move on submissions, this is where you can be able to take some tasks like allocating a submission to a specific editor who can see through that submission. Then we go to next tab is issues. This is where you create issues and publish issues. Announcements, you can be able to add your announcements there. Settings has got a group of tabs: journal, website, workflow, distribution, user roles. So under journal and website settings.
Traducteur gratuit.
Ina constantly spoke about making your journal visible and adding metadata that will communicate with people to be able to understand your journal. So these two tabs, journal and website settings, you can be able to populate your journal, to be able to provide description for the journal, the ISSN, the title, and the path of the journal. Can I proceed?
Yes, go on.
Okay. And you can be able to add the description of your journal, be able to add to customize your header the way you want, your footer. So basically all the information, the about information that is required for your journal to speak to different communities is populated through journal and website. And under website settings is where you can also be able to set your plugins. Then we've got workflow and distribution. Here you can be able to populate different guidelines for different communities. I just said guidelines for different communities, but some guidelines are not per se for the outside community, but you can be able also to create some guidelines for your reviewers. You can be able to create templates for your reviewers, and then you can set guidelines for your authors. And with the distribution, okay, I just need to clarify something. I think something moved on my slide. The first two pointers are looking at journal and website settings. The second set is pointing at workflow and distribution settings. So for distribution settings, Ina spoke about the community of the journal highlighting their license, and you can be able to also add copyright holder here to specify that. If you visit PKP website, you can be able to see that initially these development of softwares were meant for Diamond Open Access, but I understand that not all of us are going to practice Diamond Open Access. Some may practice Gold, but if you decide to do any kind of business do with the journal, under distribution can be able to do a selection of what you want. We've got user and roles, basically roles that you can assign or you can have in OJS, and users, basically people that can sign up and be users of OJS journal. Statistics is where we can find article statistics, editorial activity, users, reports. So you can be able to download files here that can show you what was being done by a specific article, what was logged in terms of editorial activities. And tools, under tools, there are plugins that are there, and these are export and import plugins. I highlighted some of the export plugins, like how you can set specific plugins that can allow you to transfer content or metadata to specific websites after indexing. And I am going to just move on to give specifications of certain things. Administration is where you can go and have administration right and be able to create a journal from the word go. So what does OJS offer? So in OJS, when this software is set, you can be able to have submissions in there, upload submissions, assign submissions, and you can be able to do the entire editorial process until you have published an issue. So by editorial process is the responsibility of the editor to be able to evaluate something, a manuscript that has been uploaded. If it is worth sending to the reviewers, you can be able to do that. And then when reviewers receive that, they can do the review online, or they can be able to do offline and then later upload. So it facilitates all those OJS. And peer reviewing online, like I've said, you can be able to do copy editing, but unless if you do have a software that you can incorporate to OJS, you can do copy editing online as well. The reason why I am saying that is that OJS does not really, the generic software does not really allow copy editing online, but you can be able to incorporate a software to do copy editing online, but you can be able to do copy editing outside OJS and upload, and then you can publish online. The one good thing with open journal systems is all activities or actions you take with regard to a specific submission, you can be able to see all the activities. And so if another editor has left, you can be able to go to one manuscript and then open the activity log for you to be able to see how far had this person gone with this specific manuscript. And then I put italics on archiving, because I'm not talking about archiving for preservation purposes, but what I'm trying to say is, if you upload a submission in OJS, whether it's rejected or it's published, the entire process from the time of submission, then when the editor reviews it and then sent to a reviewer, whatever that has been uploaded during the entire process, you can still be able to visit all these manuscripts and see the comments. So this is actually an advantage if I look at it for audit purposes. If you want to look at a journal and see what they've been doing with their submissions, if it is quality, we always talk about rigor, but one disadvantage with rigor is what we look outside the journal and what we compare with the journal. It's just the science that we see that has been published. But for us to see if peer reviewers have done really a rigorous work, it's something that can be seen by the team of the journal. But if there was a way for people to also query something, I think you can go to the log and be able to also visit all the stages and download some files that you can be able to evaluate if there is a good process that is taking place in a specific journal. And there is free preservation services by PKP. What you only need to do is to meet the few requirements that are there, and then to accept the terms that are there. I have just added a link where you can visit and see how this process works. But can I just highlight that PKP has a publishing service where you can have it manage your journal for you, but at a specific fee. So you can also do a research if you don't want to do the download and management of a journal yourself. Maybe you don't have IT support, but PKP can also do that. Journal website, I'm not going to say much about this because I had highlighted much of this when we were looking at the busy slide, but I just want to talk about setup of plugins like DOAJ plugin and OKD plugins. Like I have said, for you to be able to have DOIs in OJS, it means you have subscription with Crossref, and it could be, you could be charged per article, or you can have membership. then for anything that you publish, it can have DOIs. Then those DOIs can be activated so that if you ever move your website, there is a redirection to the actual item at some point. So for me, I think that is good practice because you don't have users struggling to re-identify where they found something or research something, because the DOI is going to reconnect them to the item online. Then OJS, I know OJS authors do not have to pay a subscription. It's for free for authors, but for universities to be able to integrate with OJS, you need to be a member and also have a license that allows OJS or any other software you're using to integrate with OJS. What I mean in this case is that if you integrate with OJS, which needs a few steps, if you do have the license and you work with OJS people to do a check of what you need to do. But then the final product is a good product because OJS can automatically synchronize data into OJS and authors do not have to go and claim from Google. So that is the good thing with the integration with OJS. But I just wanted to emphasize that with these plugins and some of the plugins, there is need for you to have some kind of subscription. And also maybe I can just highlight on the ISSN. ISSN used to be for free, but now there's a fee. I hear it's a small fee, but I can't really tell how much is the fee now. I have just moved for the reason that I had explained fully in that. So if you go to tools, I had indicated the tools, the export to DOAJ, to PubMed, to Crossref. You, in a briefly explained that you can be able to download the XML file for you to upload a bulk of the metadata onto these websites. But I just want to highlight that just like some of the indexing companies, with PubMed, you need to actually, your journal should have been selected as a Medline journal, and it should have been posted on PMC. And so you don't just automatically become part of the PubMed. But Google Scholar is, like Ina had highlighted, it's one organization that indexes automatically. If you can look at the link I have highlighted under OJS, if you visit that link, you can be able to see that after a few issues, Google Scholar can be able to pick up your journal as they explain there. Under tools, you can also find plugins that import data into OJS. Like Quick Submit is a tool that allow us, let's suppose we have been working on submissions via emails and we do have them on our desktop, or they are somewhere, or we want to move a data, issues that have been existing on the website, they were not in OJS. So you can be able to use Quick Submission to quickly submit and publish something that did not have a process of evaluation in OJS. So you do have your galleys or your final PDFs on the desktop. So you can go and create an issue and upload all the articles of that specific issue via Quick Submit. I did not really plan to demonstrate anything, but some of the things I think that need maybe when we are actually doing things live. So these tools and supports, they actually assist us to migrate data to where it can be visible online, and also to bring data into OJS. And so in other words, these tools, they support indexing as well, as much as I understand the way they work. I think that's all I have for today. Thank you.
Thank you, Liana. I'm now going to quickly zoom into what you can do and what does it look like behind the scenes. So in OJS, there's under distribution settings a search engine indexing option, and OJS encourages you to register your sitemap with Google, but you have opportunity to add some HTML tags here to make it more discoverable. if you want to register your sitemap, you have to have a Google Gmail account for your journal. Go to Google Search Console and click on Start Now, and there you can register your sitemap. I have registered a sitemap for this journal, and this is what it would look like. And it's important for this to be successfully registered with Google, so that the Google crawlers and bots, etc., can find it. Because we do not know what our criteria for Google indexing. We just know they have a private algorithm with which they use to index websites, etc., also for journals. And it also gives you an indication of how healthy your site is, and it can merge with Google Analytics so that you can use the statistics for reporting and for funding, etc. Under distribution access settings is also the access button, important that you tick the journal will provide open access to its contents and enable indexing through the Open Archives initiatives in OJS. Then the tool, as Lena said, there's the PubMed XML export plugin, which helps to automate the whole process. So if your journal has been approved for inclusion in PubMed, you can use this export plugin. Crossref, very important, but you also export your and deposit your metadata with Crossref. And then the DOAJ export plugin comes in very handy. You have to set up a DOAJ export plugin. You have to have a profile on the DOAJ page for your journal. And then on that user page for your journal, you will be able to find the DOAJ API key. And then tick this button, OJS will deposit articles automatically to DOAJ, and that's it. And every time you publish a new issue or a new article, your system, your OJS will automatically deposit it, and this is the status when successfully registered with DOAJ. Then also the org ID. In previous sessions, we've encouraged you to also request authors and all users of your OJS to add their org IDs. Once registered, once the metadata is registered with Crossref org ID then tracks or extracts the data from Crossref, and then it will automatically display on the org ID page. So this is also about interoperability and different systems talking to one another. Thank you.
On the specifics of how to be included on an African journal index, AJOL has been working since 1998. Actually, it was started by a non-profit organization in Oxford in the UK, and then handed over to an independent non-profit organization primarily based in South Africa in 2005. And using OJS, the free and open source software that Lena has been describing in detail, and that Inna has also mentioned, is kind of the industry standard for developing country journals to use as publishing software, should they choose to use publishing software, because it's free and because it's been around for a really long time. And as Lena mentioned, it is upgraded every now and then and continuously improved. AJOL uses amended Open Journal Systems software for the hosting of all of the journals that we partner with, in terms of helping them to increase their online accessibility, their online visibility, and in part the quality of the journals that we work in partnership with them individually to help improve. So at the moment, we have an online library of 560 journal partners published from 35 African countries. Of those partners, 293 are open access. So AJOL is not purely an open access journal hosting service and indexing service. We include all publishing models. This often helps journals that have previously been in hard copy only to move online through AJOL for free, and then consider moving to an open access model of distribution or publishing model in various ways. And AJOL can assist with those processes as they are decided on by the editorial boards. Because AJOL has been around for so long and is very well known and is relied upon and trusted, we have millions of site visits, many millions of full text downloads from our website every single month from all over the world. So many of the journals that AJOL works with, we work with a huge range of journals. We include all subject areas. Some of the journals that we work with are co-published or publish themselves by professional journal publishers. So they have all of the technological advantages of large professional publishers. They know all of the norms. They have the technical staff to be able to implement really strong technical stuff in this constantly kind of expanding environment that we're working in scholarly publishing. New standards are emerging all the time that are becoming expected and normal. On the other hand, the majority of the journals that we partner with are actually small standalone journals run by run by scholarly societies, groups of subject-specific experts who aren't necessarily familiar with all of these technological and publishing standards. And this is where AJOL steps in to help. If you don't, for example, have the IT staff within your journal or within your institution to be able to set up an open journal systems dedicated web server machine, a website, to be able to download and install the software, to have 100% accessibility of that website and the database of all of the content of your journal. All of that stuff takes money or takes in-kind support from a hosting entity like a university. It takes expertise. AJOL covers that for free for the journals that are approved to join our partnership. We also provide a free and reliable backup of the full digital archive of all of our partners. We encourage as well the full archive. So from issue 1 of your journal, it's preferable to have all of that on AJOL. It is absolutely fine to have all of that on your own website as well, and to have all of that on a subject-specific index or platform, etc. The more places that your content is available, the more different types of audience that you're going to reach online, even if you are optimized for indexing services and machine readability, which AJOL does as well because of our OJS base. We offer free digital object identifiers, which are persistent identifiers for individual articles. We do training. We also offer the full online publishing software process for journals that have been trained in how to use the full OJS software, as Lena has explained to us, how Basim will be explaining in French towards the end of the webinar. We offer that hosting service for free. Only a few journals have taken us up on that, likely because it is still quite a complicated thing, and sometimes the journals who have the technical capacity to run their journal through publishing software have also got the resources to be able to host that software themselves. We provide free monthly usage statistics to each of our journals. And basically being indexed on AJOL means that you have a much higher visibility because of being part of a massive partnership, a Pan-African partnership of journals, than just your own website. If you are online by yourself, or if you are on your university's website somewhere far down in the site navigation that Ina mentioned, being part of AJOL is a specific, dedicated Pan-African collection of peer-reviewed research journals makes you far more visible, makes your content far more visible to authors as well. So it can increase the quality and the number of articles that come in for assessment to your journal. We also we require various different aspects for inclusion, just like any other academic indexing platform would. Some of the very basic ones are that the journal must be published or managed within the African continent. We don't include journals from Pakistan, for example, although we get queries all the time from all over the world. The journals must be peer-reviewed, reputable, scholarly and content, quality controlled, ISSN, EISSN, those sorts of things. All of those inclusion criteria are available on the website. I'm also moving quite quickly because this is a packed webinar, and so I'm just highlighting a couple of different aspects as we go. You can look through the content on the website, on AJOL's website, in various different ways. At the moment, we have what we call free-to-read titles. We're not calling them open access titles, because as open access has emerged and become more standardized internationally, it's not just about making the content free online. You also have to adjust your copyright if you started out as a subscription journal and insisted on authors handing over copyright to your journal. You have to adjust that statement. You have to choose a Creative Commons license, so on and so forth. So they're not all technically open access journals that are under that category on AJOL yet, but we assist the journals to become in line with the requirements to be considered an open access journal. We have an application form, and that's how you join AJOL, by emailing applications@ajol.info. We do have quite strict inclusion criteria, which can be seen on our website at this link over here. There is a separate, under that section on our website, there is a link to another website called journalquality.info, which explains our whole JPPS assessment system. Once journals apply for inclusion, they are assessed by a very, very long list of criteria and then given feedback on the areas that they are missing in terms of our basic inclusion criteria. Then the journal applicants, it takes quite a long time, this process of inclusion. Once the journal has implemented our recommendations so that they are up to our basic inclusion criteria, they can reapply with proof that they've made those changes. And then they are eventually usually accepted and to AJOL. At this point, though, we do screen very carefully to make sure that we don't accept journals with problematic publishing practices. Some people might call those predatory journals. We have to be very, very careful about that. So we do, that's one of the reasons why the assessment takes a long time. It is very in-depth and careful. We encourage our open access journal partners to apply to the DOAJ for inclusion for the reasons that were mentioned earlier by ASSAf. One of the reasons why AJOL is important and so well known, and this links to the next presentation about a regional indexing service in Latin America and developing country regions, is because in the past, northern indexing services were biased towards only northern content being good enough for inclusion. Some of that is still the case, but also in our own right, there is need for developing country researchers to access through indexing services and platforms like these research content that is relevant to their own situations within their own countries or their own regions. That said, though, joining the DOAJ and other subject-specific overseas indexing platforms and services does add additional perception of credibility amongst your overseas readers in particular. So in terms of reaching the DOAJ inclusion criteria, once a journal on AJOL has a JPPS 2-star rating through our assessment system, you pretty much have covered most of the inclusion criteria. Another thing that I'd just like to mention briefly before I end my presentation here is that there is such a thing, while there's such a thing as predatory journals or fake journals, there's also such a thing as predatory or fake academic indexing services. So be careful of that, because if you list being part of one of those on your website, that will indicate to the world, to readers, to authors who know what they're doing, that you don't quite know what you're doing. And the way to do that is to check the wiki entry and the University of Miami resources that Inna mentioned earlier, just to make sure that any indexing service that you apply to is legitimate. Basically, a shortcut to doing so is don't pay anything. If you're asked to pay to be added to an academic indexing service, that is an indication that it is probably not a good idea to continue with that one. So that is me. Thank you very much for listening. Any questions are welcome either at the end of this webinar if there's time, or by email. We thank, as always, our current donor partners at the Swedish International Development Agency for their support. Thank you, and I'm handing over now.
Thank you, Sue. Second.
Sorry, there we go.
Yeah.
Trying to change. Yes.
Yes.
You can. Okay, good. As Irina was unable to attend due to the current situation in Ukraine, I will shortly present her slides. One of the most recent resources produced by EIFL is a checklist to support editors and publishers in open access journals using OJS software. This checklist could be used by journalists to check where they are and get practical advice on how to implement certain changes. It includes more details about the current production release of software OJS free and tips on organizational identifiers, plugin, DOAJ registration, copyright and licensing, the PKP project preservation network, and journal content accessibility. There is also a useful updated list for further reading. I will share you a direct link to this resource so that you can access it. There you are. And that's it from me. I hand over to Louise.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Sorry, I seem to have a problem here. Suddenly my Zoom option has disappeared. Could I ask, I think,
do you want to...
Sue, you have my slides there? There we go. Wait, I think I might manage now. Just one moment. So sorry about that. Here we go. Right, good day to all of you colleagues, and just wonderful to be working in the sphere of scholarly publishing. And what I'd like to share with you, I'm Louise van Heerden, and I'm from the Academy of Science. I work with Inna, and I'd like to share with you today what we are doing and that we're doing in South Africa. And this is just an example of a regional index that I'd like to make you aware of. And we encourage journals to be on as many platforms as possible, because the more platforms you are on, the more you exposure you get, more visibility, but of course credible as Sue said. All right, so I want to tell you about a regional database, an initiative called SciELO that was started in Latin America. And I'm mentioning this because we can do this in Africa as well, and AJOL is a good example of this. And this was started in Brazil in 1997. And today we have a total of 16 national collections from Latin America and South Africa, as well as Spain and Portugal, that are now part of this network. So each national collection is funded.
Louise, I think we see your first slides shared. Are you moving between slides right now?
Okay.
So I guess you're on a full screen mode. So full screen is not shared. So you can proceed with sharing in the edit mode, and we will see the presentation.
Okay. Is this can you view this one now, SciELO one?
Yes, we can see it now.
I'm so sorry, I got a new laptop a little while ago and I haven't mastered everything yet.
No,
righto, so each of these collections is funded by its government for their country, because all SciELO journals are open access. And the South African government is doing the same by way of the vehicle of SciELO South Africa, which was started in 2009. We then, furthermore, I can say that only the best journals are included from South Africa. As Sue also has mentioned, with AJOL as well, the very strict criteria. And what I like about AJOL is you have the 3 tiers, tier 1, 2, and 3, indicating how the journal's doing. Also, we this SciELO network then has done so well, and this is a future option for countries in Africa or groups of countries in Africa. But so in the case, I want to just point out the benefit of a regional cooperation. In the case of SciELO, we've had the SciELO network has merged all the SciELO national collections into the SciELO Citation Index. So that's all 16 collections are taken up in that. And then there's the SciELO network is then negotiated with the Web of Science for the SciELO Citation Index to become part of the Web of Science search portal and based on adherence to strict best practice standards. Right, and furthermore, as we know, when people stand together, there are so many advantages. We can collaborate. So if countries get together and form, let's say, an Eastern African platform or a Western African or Northern or Southern or a total Pan-African platform, then you know that people can collaborate. You've got expertise, you've got your infrastructure, you've got support amongst one another, the different countries, and you've got a collective negotiation power. So all the collections make up, as I've said, the SciELO Citation Index, and this is taken up in the Web of Science search portal. So if you have a look at this, then you'll see this diagram, but take note that the SciELO Citation Index is not part of the Web of Science core collection. So you see this dark part here in the middle, dark purple, that is the core collection. Those are going to Web of Science, the very best journals, according to their criteria. But if you have a look at this part here, regionally hosted collections, you'll see SciELO is there. You'll see Korea has a collection, Russia, China, and there's even an Arabic collection. And then to expand on that, we'll really then see that there are other regional collections that do feed into the Web of Science search portal. And my question then to end off is, which will be next? Will Africa or groups of countries in Africa start a regional index or databases with similar benefits? And AJOL is certainly a good example of this. Another way that one can go about creating such a regional index or collection is by working with the Academy of Science in your country. So we do encourage you to continue trying to get your journal onto as many platforms, trusted platforms, as possible. I look forward to your questions at the end of this session.
Thank you, Louise.
Pleasure.
Now, Bessin will give a brief French demonstration or explanation of OJS. Lucie?
Yes. I will share my screen. Okay. So. Do you see my screen?
Not. Oh, yeah. Now we can. Okay. Please proceed.
Okay. So I will speak en French. Bonjour tout le monde. Donc, on a programmé qu'une partie en langue française sera parmi ce webinaire. Donc, je m'appelle Bassam Amira, je suis ingénieur informaticien donc, du Centre national universitaire de documentation scientifique et technique en Tunisie. Donc, on va survoler les fonctionnalités qui offre la solution Open Journal System. Donc, c'est un software open source à code ouvert, code source ouvert. Donc, c'est une initiative qui a été effectuée par le PKP, une initiative interuniversitaire pour le développement de solutions pour la gestion éditoriale, y compris la gestion éditoriale des revues savantes. Donc, c'est le cas de OJS. Donc, vous pouvez donc consulter le site de PKP, le pkp.sfu.ca. Donc, vous trouvez donc toutes les solutions qu'offre cette PKP. Donc, parmi celles Open Journal System, vous pouvez télécharger cette page actuellement. C'est la page de téléchargement, puisque c'est une solution donc open source. Donc, vous pouvez télécharger le code source des versions récentes. Donc, actuellement, nous sommes à la version 3.3.0-10. Donc, elle vient juste de paraître. Ça fait donc le 7 de ce mois, mars 2022. Donc, il suffit de télécharger et de l'installer sur un serveur web. Donc, c'est un simple serveur web qui prend en charge le PHP. Toutes les composantes sont aussi des composants open source, tels que les bases de données MySQL ou MariaDB ou Postgres. Donc, vous pouvez même l'installer sur tous les environnements, les systèmes d'exploitation possibles. Donc, je vais essayer maintenant de vous donner un aperçu sur l'utilisation aussi de OJS à travers le monde. OJS, il y a plus de 20 000 instances, plus de 20 000 revues qui utilisent OJS actuellement dans plus de 100 pays. Et à titre d'exemple, 40% des revues indexées par DOAJ sont des revues qui utilisent OJS comme solution pour gérer leurs revues en ligne. Donc, à travers le site de PKP, vous avez aussi même puisque c'est une solution open source, donc elle se base sur une communauté derrière, communauté pour le développement, pour la documentation et pour le support. Donc, vous pouvez accéder même à la documentation et même une possibilité d'essayer les dernières versions. Et puis, une rubrique dédiée à ça qui s'appelle Démo, donc, et qui offre la possibilité à vous de tester et voir les fonctionnalités qu'offre Open Journal System. Donc, moi, j'ai essayé d'installer une instance pour explorer les fonctionnalités qu'offre cette solution. Donc, donc voilà l'interface d'accueil, c'est l'interface utilisateur. J'ai créé une revue pour tester, je l'ai appelée Open Journal System Webinar Demo. Vous voyez que c'est un peu mis dans le contexte de ce webinaire pour vous donner un aperçu sur la possibilité de manipuler l'aperçu, de gérer les styles et le thème, le chart graphique d'une revue. Donc, vous avez un menu qui vous offre l'accès sur les numéros courants, les archives, les annonces et toutes les informations nécessaires pour la revue. Tout ça, c'est géré par le back-office qui offre ce système. Donc, chaque utilisateur aussi, vous pouvez donner aussi à chaque utilisateur de s'inscrire librement. Donc, il peut créer son propre compte sur l'interface. Donc, à travers ce formulaire, dès que vous installez OJS, vous avez donc créé automatiquement un compte à travers l'installation, dans le processus d'installation. Ce compte, c'est le compte administrateur qui donne tous les rôles possibles à travers la plateforme. Vous donne aussi l'accès à un tableau de bord que vous voyez actuellement sur le tableau de bord pour gérer cette revue. Donc, il y a le barre de navigation en haut qui dans laquelle vous pouvez accéder à changer la langue de l'interface, modifier le profil, voir les tâches qui ont été affectées pour vous. Donc, pour le panneau de menu à gauche, vous avez toutes les accès vers les sous-rubriques à travers un menu gauche. Donc, vous pouvez consulter les soumissions en cours, les numéros planifiés ou les numéros précédents, les archives. Vous pouvez aussi consulter les annonces et toute une sous-rubrique de paramétrage qui vous donne la possibilité de paramétrer les revues, le site web, le flux, la chaîne éditoriale, donc le flux de travaux, ce qu'on appelle un flux de travaux, c'est le workflow pour l'évaluation et toutes les étapes de la chaîne éditoriale. Donc, il gère aussi les utilisateurs et les rôles. Actuellement, en tant qu'administrateur, cette installation me donne la possibilité d'héberger une revue ou plusieurs revues. Donc, c'est simple. Dès que vous accédez, le premier accès vous donne aussi une assistance pour créer votre revue. Donc, j'ai ici, voilà la revue que j'ai créée. Donc, vous pouvez même créer votre propre revue à travers cette assistance. Sinon, vous pouvez accéder directement à la revue créée et commencer à paramétrer votre revue à travers le menu revue. Donc, le menu revue vous permet d'identifier votre revue, de renseigner toutes les informations nécessaires sur le titre, l'abréviation du titre, l'édition, les SSN, et donc tous les renseignements de base, à savoir une petite description sur la revue, la liste de donner aussi la communauté éditoriale, les membres de la communauté éditoriale, et une description plus détaillée sur la revue. Tout ça sera visible à travers l'interface utilisateur, donc sur le site web de la revue, même les coordonnées techniques, les coordonnées éditoriales de rédacteur en chef ou un membre de comité éditorial. Donc, toutes les différentes rubriques de la revue, vous pouvez même les manipuler, les paramétrer, vous pouvez créer des rubriques ou d'ajouter, d'activer ou de désactiver une rubrique. Ça, c'est comment une revue, selon votre cas, vous pouvez le paramétrer. Sinon, il y a aussi la possibilité de créer des catégories sur lesquelles vous attachez les revues, vous donnez une autre possibilité à l'utilisateur de naviguer à travers les articles de votre revue. Donc, si on explore aussi le menu de site web, ici, vous avez la possibilité de changer le thème, donc la charte graphique de votre revue. Il y a par défaut un thème par défaut offert dès votre installation, mais il y a aussi des plugins, des logiciels que vous dédiés à d'autres thèmes. Moi, j'ai installé quelques thèmes de plus. Donc, dès que vous spécifiez un thème, vous enregistrez, vous pouvez voir pouvez remarquer donc le changement de style du thème de la charte graphique de votre revue. Donc, voilà, c'est simple, c'est intuitif. Et donc, ça donne, c'est une des forces de l'Open Journal System. Donc, ils vous permettent de paramétrer, de configurer les différents enseignements utiles, les guides, les guidelines pour les utilisateurs, les auteurs, les bibliothécaires. Donc, vous pouvez choisir les langues de l'interface et donc, quelle que soit les langues de l'interface utilisateur ou les interfaces de back-office de ce tableau de bord. Donc, vous pouvez aussi modifier la façon auquel vous offrez la navigation à travers votre site, les différentes rubriques, quel que soit ici sur le menu principal, ici sur la navigation pour l'utilisateur qui se trouve au nom de la page à droite, au coin. Et si vous voulez activer, donc vous les activez à travers cette rubrique, une petite introduction, le nombre d'annonces que vous voulez qu'elles puissent s'afficher à l'utilisateur. Ici, le paramétrage du résultat, on voit des 25 résultats par page, la pagination, elle peut aller jusqu'à 10, la déclaration de confidentialité. Donc, tout ça, c'est pour que les interfaces offertes à travers le site web soient adaptées à votre besoin. Donc, Open Journal System, il est un système modulaire. Il permet aussi d'intégrer d'autres modules, donc offrir une richesse, une ouverture et une adaptation plus accrue aux besoins des comités éditoriaux. Donc, vous pouvez ici ajouter des blocs. Donc, ici, c'est les logiciels. Et vous pouvez l'activer, désactiver au fur et à mesure selon votre besoin. Donc, sinon, vous pouvez les télécharger et les installer. Ça dépend de votre besoin. Donc, il suffit de cliquer, de consulter eux et d'installer selon selon votre besoin. Sinon, tout ça est très important, surtout pour que la question de l'indexation, il y a aussi des logiciels qui sont dédiés à l'exportation vers le DOAJ, vers le datasite, le Crossref, le PubMed. Ici, le logiciel Quick Submit qui ma collègue Léna, la présentation a parlé sur la possibilité d'introduire les anciens numéros et les archives de façon plus rapide, sans passer par le workflow et de la chaîne éditoriale qu'on va le présenter actuellement. Donc, ce workflow ici paramétrable. Donc, vous pouvez désactiver, si vous voulez, les soumissions en ligne à travers ce menu. Sinon, spécifier les métadonnées auxquelles tout auteur ou soumissionnaire doit remplir, ou les métadonnées auxquelles on décrit les articles soumis à la revue pour une évaluation et probablement la publication de ces articles à travers votre revue. Donc, vous choisissez les métadonnées convenables à votre besoin. Lors d'activation d'un des métadonnées, vous spécifiez si les mots-clés sont, par exemple ici, si elle est saisie ou renseignée par l'auteur, ou elle est c'est juste une suggestion de la part d'auteur, ou la communauté éditoriale s'en charge de les renseigner. Donc, ici, les types d'articles, vous pouvez aussi ajouter ou spécifier des types d'articles auxquels vous acceptez leur soumission à travers votre revue. Donc, généralement, c'est des textes d'articles de recherche aussi. Ça peut être aussi des données, donc des supports multimédia, donc des transcriptions. Donc, toute possibilité auxquelles vous offrez à aux auteurs. Donc, vous pouvez ici décrire les éléments auxquels les articles peuvent être classés. Donc, la liste de vérification, ça s'affiche pendant la soumission. Donc, vous pouvez ajouter un élément, une contrainte auquel l'auteur devra accepter ou être averti lors de leur soumission d'article. Et les directives, vous spécifiez les guidelines auteurs que vous offrez à propos des droits d'auteur et tout ce qui concerne la soumission. Donc, l'évaluation. C'est comment vous choisissez aussi l'évaluation, c'est une évaluation blind, c'est-à-dire anonyme, l'évaluateur est anonyme, l'auteur aussi est anonyme pendant l'évaluation, sinon ça reste que l'évaluateur que sera anonyme, ou sinon c'est une évaluation ouverte, open evaluation. Donc, ça, c'est les paramètres pour les accès aux fichiers activés. Donc, et c'est très important, c'est les délais pour l'évaluateur. Donc, vous pouvez spécifier les délais de réponse alloués pour accepter ou décliner l'invitation. Donc, une invitation va être envoyée à l'évaluateur pour accepter qu'il évalue un article qui a été soumis, et un délai aussi pour accepter l'évaluation une fois elle est complète. Donc, tout ça est paramétrable. Les conseils, ça c'est pour les directives, pour les évaluateurs, les intérêts et les priorités que spécifiera la comité éditoriale aux évaluateurs. Donc, vous pouvez aussi même spécifier, OJS offre une formulaire d'évaluation basique, mais vous pouvez aussi créer votre formulaire d'évaluation. Donc, l'évaluation de l'évaluateur, ils peuvent répondre à cette formulaire pour donner son appréciation bien détaillée sur les volets auxquels la comité éditoriale et le rédacteur en chef veut que les évaluateurs donnent leur avis sur elle. Donc, on peut aussi construire une bibliothèque de guides ici. Sinon, ici, puisque OJS ils permettent de gérer la chaîne éditoriale et de gérer aussi toutes les correspondances possibles entre les différents intervenants, les membres de la communauté éditoriale et aussi les évaluateurs et les auteurs. Donc, ils donnent des modèles de messages paramétrables, donc, et proposés intuitivement à l'utilisateur à chaque étape selon le besoin. Donc, vous pouvez même consulter, les modifier en cas où, sinon, ils feront déjà l'affaire. Sinon, le volet distribution. Distribution, ça concerne les directives aussi pour tout. De spécifier le copyright, la question de la licence, comment on affiche la date de copyright, les termes de licence, s'il y a un terme de licence spécifique. Sinon, on le laisse vide. Ça, c'est la partie indexation pour que les moteurs de recherche. Donc, on introduit une description et les balises HTML méta nécessaires pour que les moteurs de recherche et les indexeurs de moteurs de recherche puissent indexer notre site convenablement. si vous avez le besoin de paiement, sinon vous spécifiez que le mode de publication il est en libre accès, c'est-à-dire en open access. Donc, ça, c'est pour la question de l'exposition de toutes les métadonnées des articles à travers le OAI. C'est une possibilité qui donne certains revues à d'autres services pour indexer leur contenu via une interface OAI PMH. Donc, la question de préservation, vous spécifiez les options d'archivage auxquelles la revue et la communauté éditoriale a choisi d'effectuer les préservations nécessaires. C'est une étape aussi très importante. Aussi, sous le menu utilisateur et rôle, vous voyez que vous pouvez ajouter des utilisateurs, des évaluateurs, des membres de la communauté éditoriale selon les rôles prédéfinis. Vous voyez que ces rôles sont spécifiés selon les étapes de la chaîne éditoriale. Donc, vous donnez les autorisations nécessaires sur les soumissions, l'évaluation, les révisions et la production. Donc, tout utilisateur qui s'inscrit à travers votre instance OJS donc, pourra soumettre un article. Dès qu'il soumet un article, le rédacteur en chef sera averti par une notification qui se situe à travers cette icône. Donc, on pourra même consulter ici les soumissions qui ont été effectuées, les soumissions qui ont en cours, les soumissions qui ont été acceptées et publiées. Donc, si on consulte cette soumission, elle a passé les 4 étapes et donc elle est prête pour une publication. Elle est même planifiée, donc planifiée pour être publiée. Le statut planifié, c'est-à-dire que cette soumission a été affectée à un numéro. Ça dépend. Si ce numéro a été publié, donc elle sera aussi publiée. Sinon, dès que le rédacteur en chef décide de publier un numéro, automatiquement, les articles planifiés seront aussi publiés. Donc, vous pouvez ici consulter toutes les métadonnées de cette soumission, les épreuves, c'est-à-dire la production sur quel format, et les autorisations de divulgation, et le numéro et la pagination de cet article. Donc, vous pouvez même voir l'aperçu, qu'est-ce que ça donne. Donc, voilà. Dans le cas où le numéro correspondant sera publié, elle sera affichée ainsi selon les différents paramétrages qu'on a fait. Donc, sinon, la richesse de OJS aussi, on peut l'explorer, on voit en manipulant aussi une soumission qui n'a pas été réalisée. Donc, je vais essayer de se connecter avec un compte comme rédacteur en chef. Donc, dès que le rédacteur en chef, vous voyez que directement, il est envoyé vers le tableau de Word sans que le menu de l'administration, donc il n'est pas administrateur du site, mais il est Il a tous les rôles possibles pour la gestion éditoriale, ils peuvent consulter les soumissions qui ont été effectuées. Voilà une notification qui pour l'avertir d'une action. Donc, sinon, il peut voir les soumissions qui n'ont pas été traitées. Ils peuvent les consulter. C'est les étapes en cours. Elle est en cours elle n'a pas été envoyée vers une évaluation. Donc, les fichiers soumis par l'auteur, ils peuvent consulter le fichier, télécharger, assigner. Ils peuvent aussi assigner un adjoint donc, à cette pour faire et donc envoyer une notification à travers les modèles de correspondance, assignation donc à un rédacteur. Automatiquement, le message sera renseigné et donc on spécifie si cette partie, ce adjoint peut uniquement proposer ou recommander une décision éditoriale ou ils peuvent laisser déboucher pour qu'il ait toutes les autorisations possibles, comme s'ils peuvent prendre une décision éditoriale tout simplement une fois que la soumission a été évaluée par des évaluateurs. Donc, une notification sera envoyée par mail et donc ce rédacteur peut commencer soit à évaluer, à choisir dans la partie évaluation les évaluateurs. Donc, on peut passer si le rédacteur chef juge que après une pré-évaluation, elle peut entamer l'étape d'évaluation. Donc, vous voyez cette soumission à l'évaluation. Donc, vous voyez qu'on est dans l'étape évaluation. Donc, dans cette étape, OJS, il peut donner plusieurs cycles d'évaluation et ça dépend des choix de la comité éditorial et de la politique de la revue. Ça dépendra de combien de cycles ils pourront entamer. Bon, pour le premier cycle, c'est le rédacteur en chef ou l'adjoint peut ajouter plusieurs évaluateurs. Donc, normalement, il fait une recherche à travers un ensemble important d'évaluateurs. À fur et à mesure, ça peut être enrichi à travers à l'avance de l'utilisation de l'OJS. Vous pouvez constituer une agenda importante avec l'évaluateur, même avec une pré-évaluation par la communauté de l'expérience de cet évaluateur avec des autres soumissions. Donc, vous pouvez sélectionner un évaluateur, lui envoyer un courrier selon un template, un modèle créé, donc, et paramétrable, lui donnant un aperçu sur la vue, les dates clés, donc, et d'envoyer et d'ajouter cet évaluateur. Cet évaluateur donc, a le choix d'accepter d'évaluation de cette soumission ou de ne pas l'accepter. Le rédacteur en chef peut ajouter un ou plusieurs évaluateurs. Vous pouvez consulter ici dans la rubrique évaluateur, donc tous les évaluateurs et le statut, donc la dernière action, si elle a accepté, ça devra être modifié ici que l'évaluateur a accepté et la date exacte. Sinon, vous pouvez même consulter tous les événements qui ont cette soumission a subi, donc par les différents intervenants. Une fois l'évaluation est effectuée, donc l'évaluateur, je peux donc voir le tableau de bord d'un évaluateur, donc comment l'évaluateur va interagir avec cette proposition d'évaluation. Donc, voilà le tableau de bord d'un évaluateur, les soumissions qui sont assignées à cet évaluateur. L'évaluation a été assignée. Il y a en attente de réponse de l'évaluateur. Donc, il peut l'afficher, voir, consulter les métadonnées, donc, et les délais, le calendrier envoyé par le rédacteur. Donc, il coche en cas où il accepte l'évaluation et de poursuivre donc les étapes d'évaluation. Une fois il a accepté l'évaluation, donc il va télécharger donc le document envoyé par le rédacteur en chef pour le consulter, puis il va renseigner toutes les recommandations, ces remarques et commentaires sur le contenu. Il y a c'est par défaut ici, OJS il donne un texte qui est dédié à être transmis à l'auteur et au rédacteur. Aussi est dédié pour la transmission seulement au rédacteur en chef ou leur adjoint. Et aussi de joindre la correspondance avec un fichier joint. Tout ça avec une recommandation pour l'acceptation ou une révision qui doit être faite sur la soumission. Sinon, s'il décide ou s'il juge que la soumission elle n'est pas prête actuellement, ils peuvent choisir de se mettre à nouveau, soit ailleurs si le sujet traité il est loin des disciplines couvertes par la revue, sinon de refuser la soumission tout simplement. Donc, une fois, supposons qu'il y a des révisions requises, il doit donc renseigner ses commentaires et soumettre l'évaluation au rédacteur. Donc, si le rédacteur il va consulter cette soumission et qu'elle est en étape dans l'évaluation, donc il va voir que l'évaluateur a bien remis son évaluation. Donc, il peut la consulter et voir. Non, ils peuvent lancer une discussion avec l'évaluateur. À chaque instant, ils peuvent lancer une discussion. Sinon, ils peuvent, puisque l'évaluateur a recommandé une révision requise, ils peuvent décider de demander une révision à l'auteur. Donc, il va donc envoyer une correspondance pour annoncer à l'auteur que une révision est demandée sur sa soumission. Et donc, ils peuvent joindre les fichiers que peut-être l'évaluateur a envoyés. Sinon, il enregistre la décision éditoriale qu'une demande de révision a été envoyée à l'auteur et que l'auteur pourra, selon les recommandations et les commentaires de l'évaluateur, donc pourra soumettre une nouvelle version de sa soumission. De toute façon, une fois que cette évaluation et l'auteur envoie sa révision, il pourra, le rédacteur ou l'adjoint, accepter la soumission. Une fois il a accepté la soumission, on passe vers l'étape de la révision. L'étape de la révision consiste à, donc, à voir le contenu du document. Est-ce qu'il est selon les linguistiquement, il y a donc on parle plutôt ici des questions linguistiques et toutes les modifications qui ne portent pas sur la valeur scientifique de l'article. Une révision peut être effectuée à cette étape. Une fois cette révision a été, elle peut être aussi assignée à un utilisateur ou un profil dédié, donc un réviseur. Donc, il peut être assigné à quelqu'un qui est plus apte à bien réviser cette soumission et de proposer des modifications et de renvoyer ça en réponse. Sinon, une fois cette révision elle est effectuée, donc on passe à la partie production. Donc, si on part à la partie production, c'est que on va passer à la mise en style de la soumission convenablement à la charte donc de la revue, c'est-à-dire de créer les versions, les formats nécessaires qui sont prêtes à la publication finale. Donc ici, le concerné il va formater le document selon les spécificités de la revue et le format cible tel que PDF ou XML ou HTML. Donc, une fois cette étape, comme le reste des étapes précédentes, on assigne le compte de personne adéquat et on choisit donc de l'identifier. On le demande de mettre en page les épreuves. Donc, ça, c'est peut-être qui se charge automatiquement. Et donc, on lance une demande de révision de cette soumission pour que elle soit bien selon le format de publication de la revue. C'est la mise en style et la vérification de toutes les donc, une fois que le designer reçoit cette demande de révision, il va effectuer donc la mise en page et la mise en style de la création des formats nécessaires et il va donc répondre à cette demande en joignant les fichiers finaux. Donc, on va choisir ici l'exemple. Donc, ils sont produits pour un traitement de formulaire. C'est bon. Comme convenu. Donc, oui.
I'm sorry, Bassam.
Oui.
We are out of time, and
OK. Donc, je vais finaliser. Merci. Je vais finaliser. Toutefois, la dernière étape de planifier donc la publication de cette revue, le calendrier de publication, c'est de choisir un numéro auquel cette publication donc sera affectée. Donc, à quel numéro exactement? Donc, une fois cette soumission a été planifiée, il ne reste que un rédacteur de chef de décider à quel moment il va publier le numéro déjà effectué. Donc, c'est bon. Donc, comme vous voyez, donc, toute la chaîne éditoriale a été gérée à travers OJS. OJS permet de faire tout ça et ça dépendra aussi de vos besoins et peut s'adapter selon les paramétrages que vous pouvez effectuer vous-même. Ça ne nécessite pas une grande connaissance et c'est gérable. Vous pouvez même consulter toute la documentation nécessaire à travers PKP. Il offre un site sur la docs.pkp.sfu.ca pour toute la documentation sur Open Source System. Même en langue française, vous voyez que vous pouvez apprendre à utiliser OJS donc à travers la documentation offerte. Sinon, il y a aussi le School PKP, c'est aussi des comptes de MOOC, donc vous pouvez suivre un MOOC sur la gestion éditoriale, mais il est offert seulement en langue anglaise. Donc, merci à vous, donc à vous de parole. Thank you. I'm finished, so I'm.
Thank you, Bassam. Thank you. Thank you, Ina. Thank you, Lena. Thank you, Louise, and thank you, Sue, for everything. Now it's time for questions and answers, and actually we have a lot of questions entered already on Q&A box, but there are a couple of questions left, which I will move to the chat so that you see. I see a question from Tina Uma to Sue. Yeah, I posted the question on a chat. Sue, can you respond to it? Do you see?
Hi, thanks very much. Yes, Tima, thank you for the question, which was from the African Journal of Health Sciences, a long-standing partner of AJOL's. And it is to do with the fact that it is showing as inactive on the AJOL website in the JPPS system. And this is because we have not reevaluated our current partners for some time, because we were sorting out a gap in our funding, actually, so that we could hire some extra staff. The AJOL partners and demand for our services has grown beyond our existing capacity, and we are about to hire some new people, which is great. So so that's one aspect of why it's showing as inactive. What the system does is, if you have not, at the time of evaluation, if you have not published any new issues within the previous calendar year, so in the current year and the previous calendar year, you are classified as inactive at the time of the evaluation. If you then start to republish again, the journal is simply delayed because of COVID or whatever other reason strikes, whatever reason if there was a delay in publication, you need to email African Journals Online, the applications at ajol.info email address, and say, look, we were inactive for some time, we are now actively publishing, our content is up to date online, please reassess. One of my colleagues will already have emailed you. She is listening in on this webinar. She will already have emailed you, and she is working on changing your status to pending, because it's pending a reassessment for a new JPPS rating now that you're active again. Thank you for the question. I'm sure it is asked by many. Another just general Q&A question that came out that I'd quickly like to address is, how long does it take for an assessment to be done of a new applicant's journal? It varies considerably. It's around 6 months, and I guess that's a good time, because we have a waiting list at the moment of hundreds of journal applicants from around the continent waiting for inclusion, and there's often a lot of correspondence to and fro to find out whether the journals are actually implementing all of the things that they have mentioned that they are in their forms. There's a lot of support that goes into it from our side in terms of assisting journals to meet our basic inclusion criteria. So it is a very time-consuming process, and it varies from journal to journal. Journals who are already implementing very strong internationally accepted practices of publishing are generally quicker, because it's easier to assess them because the information is more readily available. Thanks. I'll stop now.
Thank you, Sue. There is one more question from Baraka Ngusa. Question is, what metric system would you recommend to measure visibility, citation, and downloads in a journal? Can anyone respond to this question?
I will respond to that very briefly. That is a very complicated question, probably for a different webinar. The impact factor is a commercial product that is owned by a Russian company called Clarivate, and that is a standard kind of assessment thingy that was used historically by commercial journals in the north. There are lots of different things that are being explored internationally at the moment in terms of metrics, but what we use at AJOL is quite simply the information that we provide to journals through the usage of their journal through AJOL. So the number of articles downloaded per month and from what country. Thanks. I'll let Inna then carry on answering the question.
I just want to add that there's no one system that can perfectly capture all our statistics for our journal. So ideally, we recommend that Google Analytics your journal have a Google Analytics profile or account together with a Google Search Console. If you use OJS software, the OJS software itself will also generate statistics on the number of downloads, and what we've experimented is a Google Scholar profile. Create a Google Scholar profile for your journal, and then you can track the citations. So eventually, when reporting, you will have to come up with a consolidated document where you have integrated the statistics from the different systems. But to track citations, usually there's a delay because it might be, once an article is published, it might be 6 months before it's been cited. So but yes, we found that a Google Scholar profile, similar to how you would create a Google Scholar profile for a scientist, create a Google Scholar profile for your journal, and then track the citations from there.
Okay, thank you. There was one more question in French from Dieng, and or she translated it to English, and it sounds, what tool do you propose to integrate AJOL? How to recognize predatory journals on OJS, because creating a journal seems to be easy for everyone. I'm not sure if it's a topic of this webinar. Maybe we are talking about predatory journals, I think, in the next webinar. But maybe someone can briefly respond to Madine's question.
I just want to mention it's not the software that makes a journal predatory.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in the end, there's so many checks and balances in place through having your journal index, through having an ISSN. To have all these best practice implemented, a journal has to be subjected to checks. And that's the best that we can recommend. Avoid at all costs that your journal is not seen as a predatory journal. And yes, I think it would be good for you to attend next week's webinar, where we're going to talk next week, Tuesday, the same time. We're going to talk about predatory journals and how to avoid being seen as predatory journal and what is a predatory journal, etc., so that you do not step into that trap.
Okay, thank you, Ina. That's it. We have no more questions. Thank you, everyone, for joining. And if you found this webinar useful, please join the next webinar, number 6, which is called Addressing Predatory Journal Publishing Issues. That's in a week's time at the same time. That's 17th of March. Thank you, everyone, and have a nice day.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.